NWO almost bankrupt WWE.
They did.
That's true.
They did. Hulk Hogan turning heel. First of all,
the best moment in wrestling history.
Maybe the best
because he's a real heel. That's
wrestling. You turn your.
Oh boy.
Definitely the most shocking heel turn in the history of wrestling. Maybe even, like Courtney said, the most shocking moment in the history of wrestling. Nobody expected Mr. Say Your Prayers, Eat Your Vitamins, Say the N-word to turn heel. To turn heel.
I am the greatest, the greatest, the greatest, the greatest.
What up, though, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the GOAT Debate Podcast. So glad that you guys are joining us here on this wonderful evening, or whenever you're listening to this episode of the podcast. It is episode number 10 of the GOAT Debate. Meech, Darius here with you, and tonight we have guests, which is a rarity for us, Darius, right?
It is, and you know, they don't really feel like guests. You know, kind of feels weird to call them guests.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to call them guests. So, little backstory, and I'll be brief before we get into it. We all started in podcasting with this little show called Hit the Ropes Radio, which became a global phenomenon, or at least it did in our minds, where we covered wrestling, MMA for a short period of time, boxing. We covered a lot of things and had a great run. And initially, the show was a trio. Then our second go round, we became 4. And so we're happy to have our guest tonight, the Caribbean playboy himself, Shane Howard, and Black Mex, Mr. Courtney McIntosh. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm good. You know, Black Mex, you know, political climate.
Oh my God.
Oh boy. Yeah, you definitely didn't think this is not 2015 or 16 anymore, buddy. Might get you in some trouble.
I hope not.
All lives matter.
Well, how does it feel, guys? The band is back together for albeit maybe one night only, but back together nonetheless. Feels good.
Oh yeah, man.
And you know if we're back together, tonight's episode must be about wrestling.
Yep.
And so on tonight's episode of the GOAT Debate, we are going to talk about who is the greatest professional wrestler of all time. The Mount Rushmore of wrestling, if you will. Which I know you like that, Shane. You like that Dusty Rhodes, if you will. So I'll throw that your way this week. The greatest wrestlers of all time on this episode of the GOAT Debate. You guys ready to get into it?
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. So you guys are the guests. So just to give you guys a little background, I know you guys listened to previous episodes. Those of you that may be new to listening to the podcast, Darius and I have a top 5. We take a top 5 amongst our poll of listeners that we have dubbed the Tribe, because you guys probably didn't know that a group of goats is called a tribe. Did you guys know that?
Had no idea.
Yeah, you know, learn something new every day. The more you know. So we take those votes and we make a composite ranking. We count them down from 5 to 1. We have 2 honorable mentions, but with guests, we like to go into your list first, and then we'll go into how the composite went. So, starting at number 5, I'll start with you, Shane, and then go to you, Courtney. Give us who made number 5 on your top wrestlers of all time list.
All right, so you just want all 5?
No, we're gonna start at number 5.
Number 5.
You can give us some points, give us some information on why you put him there, etc., etc. You have the floor, sir.
All right. So my number 5 is going to be none other than Mr. John Cena. Because when it comes to the younger generation of wrestling fans, and and some of their parents, they know John Cena. My wife knows John Cena, so I can use John Cena as a barometer of your wrestling knowledge. John, even though he's the you can't see me, many people can actually see John Cena and know this guy is a WWE wrestler. Okay. He was the next star after a certain era, and I don't want to call any other names because I don't want to mention any other wrestlers, but Cena was that next big star after a certain period in wrestling, and he took the reins, and he led the WWE to where it is now. And he's no longer doing wrestling as often, which is funny based on a rivalry he had. But he's no longer doing wrestling as much. But when it comes to the WWE landscape of today, it would not be where it is without Mr. John Cena.
Fair. Darius, what are your thoughts on that?
John Cena is definitely a top 5 wrestler. He is on my Mount Rushmore. I know it's typically a 4, but for us it's 5. And I mean, listen, you talk about after an era, he carried the WWE for over 10 years. The guy that they put on his back. He was the top merch guy. He was the top guy when it comes to the main event. I mean, for a good while, it's still, we're just now getting used to not seeing John Cena after a decade plus. So, when you talk about eras in professional wrestling, usually you kind of pick who's that GOAT from that era. John Cena was that dude for a very long time. So amongst the people that came in the business with him, the Randy Ortons and Batistas, those characters, he's the guy that was reigned up above them all. So I agree with that.
They were all blue chew. I was about to say blue chew. Lord, blue chew.
Whoa.
Okay.
Where's my mind tonight?
Not that.
Hey man, trying to get those ad dollars up.
Blue chip talents for sure. Speaking of merchandise, nobody owns more John Cena merchandise on this panel than young Courtney McIntosh here. This guy, we went to WrestleMania 27, I think it was, in Atlanta, and this guy was decked out and looked like a big box of Fruity Pebbles, rocking John Cena. I know for a fact, because if anybody is the president of the John Cena fan club amongst the 4 of us, it's you. Is John Cena? John Cena, I know, is on your list, but who is your number 5, Courtney?
First of all, y'all know I'm the president of the Michigan chapter of the C Nation, still. So I struggled with my list. I was going back and forth with it this week, and I know I gave you guys a list, and it wasn't in order, but and it's not recency bias. So on my list, number 5, I'm gonna put The Undertaker. Ooh, and hey, man, we were watching, and I struggle with him and another guy. And if we have honorable mentions, the other guy, I'll mention him later. But when you think about The Undertaker, just the longevity that he has, and I'm not even talking about the streak, but just the fact that he's basically, me and you were talking yesterday, Meech, he's wrestled in 5 decades. You know what I'm saying? Right. And talking about the greatest character that WWE has ever created, and a guy who was dedicated to his character, big man pulling off, like he's the first big man you've seen like diving over the ropes. You know, the first big man, the only big man that you've seen, like, you know, doing this little walk across the ropes and then a clothesline. I mean, that was like some of the things he did, the athleticism he had for a big man was just like, you know, you've never seen it before. And go to the fact that, I mean, up until what, Goldberg at Super Showdown last year, did he have a bad match?
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, okay, all right.
Match.
Okay, but
Several.
all right.
Several.
But, okay.
More
But how
than
many-
not.
Okay, but they weren't.
Oh,
his
I wouldn't
fault.
say that. I wouldn't go that far. But
Yeah.
as he got
I mean-
older, he had some clunkers. He had some bad matches.
Yeah, because you and they've all been in like the last 3 years. You think about the Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania, of course, the Goldberg match, the other Saudi match, him and Kane against DX.
Terrible.
All four members involved said it was a train wreck. But I mean, just the fact that he went on for so long, held his mystique for so long. I mean, it was a shock seeing Undertaker with an Instagram account, you know, a couple months ago. So I mean, but man, yeah,
He's moving up in the world. You know, he's
Yeah,
getting.
man.
Is he on TikTok now? I think I saw him doing a dance the
Oh,
other day.
no. If he's on TikTok, Shane has probably found him.
Yeah, Shane has probably found him.
Shane did ask him for a collab the other day, I think.
I've not seen him yet.
Not yet.
But yeah,
When he
number
got there,
5 on
Shane
my
would
list.
know, because he's going to do a collab.
Yeah.
Best believe.
Yeah, so number 5 on my list is The Undertaker.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so we got Cena as Shane's number 5, Taker as Courtney's number 5. Courtney, I'm gonna leave it with you and let you go to number 4 before we go to Shane's number 4. Who's number 4 on your list?
All right, man. So this one I struggled with the placement. But like I said, I am the president of the Michigan chapter of the C Nation. But at number 4, I am going to put Le Champion, the Ayatollah of rock and roller, Chris Jericho.
What?
Wait, you forgot this is like the greatest of all time we're talking
Like
about.
all time?
Yeah,
like-
yeah.
I
Not the
stand
greatest
by
like
that.
an AEW.
Hey, whatever y'all want to say about Jericho, I
Okay,
stand
explain.
by it.
Explain.
I mean, do I have to explain?
Yes.
He was a star. Okay, all right. So since I have to explain, he was a star in WCW, just held back by, you know, the NWO mess at the top, you know. He came to WWE, was immediately fast-tracked and held his own in a feud with The Rock. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I still remember where I was when Chris Jericho made his debut. We were at Meech's cousin's house, sitting on her couch, and when Chris Jericho made his debut. That Chris Jericho has the all-time greatest debut in wrestling history to me. You know what I'm saying?
It's very good. It is. It's very good.
And you know, he fell off a little bit, you know, after that. But then, first person to ever be the undisputed champion. He changed it. He left, came back, was successful. Left, came back again, was successful. Left, came back, changed his wrestling style, and was successful. Left again, started a rock band, touring around the world, came back, was putting people on the list, still holding his own. And now he's, you know, Le Champion over in AEW, man. Chris Jericho is number 4 on my Mount Rushmore.
I gotta give you credit, man. You gave some great points. Not to mention his New Japan success.
Yeah,
you know, he had
walked into
success
New
there.
Japan Pro Wrestling.
And so, Darius, here's something that's interesting. We were kind of shocked when Courtney said Chris Jericho was number 4 on his list. He was number 4 in the voting by the tribe. He was tied for 4th with I won't name who else he was tied with in case he makes a list. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But Courtney made some valid points. Jeff said he agrees with the points. James says valid points. So, maybe Chris Jericho. Are we missing something, Shane? Darius, are we missing something?
Yes.
Listen, he's entitled to his opinion. I love Jericho. Jericho's one of my top 5 all time. But my personal top 5 is different from what I feel we should be talking about here.
Okay.
And I just feel that, and I put in the chat group, I just feel that Jericho's name doesn't have that cachet like some of the other guys that we might be talking about. Or when you think of wrestling, now again, Jericho is great, was great, is great. I love Jericho from when he was in WCW, when he wasn't getting his shine, when he was in that feud with Goldberg, where he was pestering Goldberg and everything like that. I love Jericho from there. The list, the man of 1,000 moves and all of that, when he was reading the list down, great. I just don't think he's Mount Rushmore material, personally. But I ain't gonna mess with the black Mexican.
Darius, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, he's good. You may say he's great, but he's not the greatest. Is my thing. Someone earlier said, my wife, Shane, I think it was Shane, said my wife knows who John Cena is. If I go to 5 people on the street, they're not going to know who Chris Jericho is. Sorry.
I agree with that. I mean, unless they listen to Fozzy, they're probably not gonna know who Jericho is. I mean, that's a valid point that Darius is making. What he's saying is he doesn't have the name recognition that a John Cena has. John Cena's been in movies. John Cena has, crossed over some. So I don't know. I don't think he, like Shane said, he doesn't have the same cachet as a Cena would, or maybe some of the other people, or even the Undertaker. I think even the Undertaker hasn't really been in any movies or anything, but he's just been around for so long that somebody has probably seen the Undertaker somewhere, whether it's a meme, whether it's a sports highlight. They love showing the meme where he rises up, or the GIF, whatever you call it, where he rises up out of the coffin. So even if you maybe have never watched WWE regularly, you probably will have more people who would recognize or know who the Undertaker was over, say, Chris Jericho.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Shane. Number 4 on your list as our guest tonight on the GOAT debate. Number 4 all-time wrestler here.
All right, number 4. I'm going way back. See, I kept it kind of current with Cena. I'm going way back here for my number 4. And again, I'm talking about cachet. People know these individuals. Number 4 on my list is none other than Andre the Giant.
Okay.
When it comes to wrestling, Andre the Giant, he was that figure where people saw him and they're like, oh, you want to see this man wrestle. You want to see who can pick this man up. You want to see who can beat this man. He had like an 80% win percentage. And, he was wrestling before like the whole pay-per-view boom and all of that stuff. But when it came to territory days, when it came to, champions and this visual of a professional wrestler and just, people that are larger than life, it's Andre the Giant. And then when you talk about crossover, he was also in like The Princess Bride.
Right.
So people know Andre the Giant.
That's an interesting selection for sure. I mean, you make valid points about Andre the Giant. I definitely think, if you're talking 80s wrestling, it's probably like, Hogan and then Andre, like as far as who's recognizable, right? And I mean, Andre the Giant was this larger than life, character. and definitely a figurehead of the WWE in the 80s for sure. Obviously before that, but I mean, we probably didn't start watching. We weren't living in the 70s, so so the 80s for sure. But any other thoughts from anybody on Andre the Giant? Any objections? I mean, clearly, I don't think he made any of our lists. He did.
Y'all flagged me for Chris Jericho, but Shane puts Andre the Giant. But
come at me, bro.
I can see why Shane puts Andre the Giant, because when you think of 80s wrestling, it's Hogan and Andre are the first two names that come to mind. So as far as his wrestling, you know what I'm saying, I might disagree with Shane, but I can see why he would figure in so prominently on this list.
Yeah, I would probably say Jericho is probably, oh boy, I might get in trouble for saying this. Jericho's probably more accomplished than Andre as far as
that's like not even
in the ring.
Yes, Jericho is more accomplished than
However, Andre the Giant probably has made a bigger impact on wrestling than Chris Jericho has. Jericho more accomplished in the ring with titles and all of that stuff. But we're talking about impact. I mean, you could make an argument that Andre the Giant was one of the people who put wrestling on the map as in the mainstream.
Has Jericho ever main evented a WrestleMania?
Technically, yes. If you want to count the match against Triple H, where Stephanie was in his corner when Triple H coming back from the quad injury and everything. Yeah, he technically has main evented a WrestleMania. However, not to the magnitude of a WrestleMania main event against Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not debating that. I mean, it's
Let's not jump on Courtney, people. Let's not jump all over.
That's what we like to jump on people of the GOAT debate. Usually it's Darius, though. Usually the chat room is giving Darius the business. So Darius is probably just relieved that it's somebody other than him tonight.
Listen, I talked to the guy who's editing the videos. I keep getting put on blast at the beginning of all these videos, and I don't appreciate it. So I'm glad someone else is here to take the heat.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Shane, you gave us your number 4. Now we want to hear your number 3. Who's number 3 on your list?
All right, number 3 is none other than When That Glass Shatters. When it came to the anti-hero, when it came to giving the middle finger to the establishment, none other than Stone Cold Steve Austin. He is my number 3.
Okay.
When I mentioned John Cena as my number 5, and I said he was that next big star after a certain period. You had the period before him where it was Austin was one of those main figureheads. When it was WWE versus or WWF versus WCW, Austin was one of those big players. Whether he's coming in on a Zamboni or or going in the back of a police car or something like that. Austin had people checking in every Monday night. Before we were RKOing people out of nowhere, you were giving Stone Cold Stunners to your high school friends and your middle school friends. You wanted to flip off your boss at work like Stone Cold. You're grabbing 2 beers and knocking them together. People still do this, and drink half the cans. So Stone Cold, and again, I'm also looking at name recognition outside of the ring. Stone Cold has gone on. He's done movies. He's done TV shows. He's got the Broken Skull Ranch. People to this day still love him. Now, he has some bad pub, with Deborah and all of that, with the domestic violence and stuff like that. But it was like 2 weeks ago, when the whole Black Lives Matter thing is, Stone Cold came out and slammed some people with the whole, you better love these black people and get behind that movement and all of that. So, props to Stone Cold for laying some smack down on some people. But yeah, Stone Cold's in my Mount Rushmore.
That
surprised me too. Wait, speaking of that, Stone Cold played a redneck for the entirety, basically, of his WWE run, and you never heard him get out of pocket or say anything out the way. You know what I'm saying? Yap, you know what I'm saying? Running his mouth, but so I was like, hey man, shout out to Steve Austin when he, you know what I'm saying, and Randy Orton too for his comments, but hey.
Yeah, I was actually surprised, and that was probably more so because I was thinking of Stone Cold the character and not Stone Cold the person. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, okay, this dude was a kind of a country redneck. I don't know if he's he's out for the cause, but he shocked me. And so yeah, definitely kudos to Stone Cold Steve Austin. What were you gonna say, Darius?
I'm saying I'm listening to all these accomplishments, and we got Stone Cold at number 3.
Yeah,
you telling me there's the greatest merch seller in the history of pro wrestling? That guy?
Yep.
The guy that gave us so many WrestleMania moments? That guy?
Listen. This was not an easy list. When you get to the my top 3, it was not an easy list.
Yeah,
and it's very debatable when you start looking at my top 3. It just for me, it might be easier for Courtney because his number 2 might be like Super Crazy or somebody like that. We heard Jericho and Undertaker. But for me, I was very strategic in my thought process, and I think Stone Cold lands at number 3, despite his merch sales and his icon status.
Yeah. All right, Courtney. Number 3 for you. I got a feeling who it's going to be, but I'll let you say it.
So as I started compiling my list, I was kind of conflicted. Like I said, I initially had 6 guys that were on my personal Mount Rushmore that I had to, think about. And so when I think about number 3, and like I've said twice already in the show, I am the president of the Michigan chapter of the C Nation. And so my number 3, the number 3 guy on my list is John Cena. And let me explain why. So not only is John Cena set the record for most, he's tied the record for most world heavyweight championships with Ric Flair. I was hoping he would have been able to get one more, but whatever. But he also has granted the most wishes in Make-A-Wish history. Speak to his character. But you got to look at the class that he was in OVW with. It was him, Shelton Benjamin, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Charlie Haas. And out of all those guys, the unquestioned number 1 was John Cena.
Unquestioned?
Unquestioned.
You mean now or then?
Do you remember when this man came in with the slap to Kurt Angle? Unquestioned?
Yeah, hey man, the kid with ruthless aggression.
The prototype?
Listen, no. I'm saying like when it's all said and done.
Okay.
Out of that group. So yeah. So like we could
let's not act like there were no other stars in that group.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So like when they first came in, Randy Orton was probably the number 1 dude just because of his wrestling pedigree and the fact that
it was Brock.
No, it was Randy Orton. Randy Orton was the youngest heavyweight champion in history.
Okay,
well, Brock was the youngest before him.
But WWE, listen.
Yes. Okay. It was okay. All right.
WWE hitched their wagon to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
They bribed him. The coaches there had to beg him to stay one more year at college so he wouldn't go to the WWE. They had their eye on him forever.
And listen, and we can listen. Wrestling, what we find out is usually stars are created during there's something opportunistic happens. Somebody gets injured, somebody leaves, something happens. Like Triple H's ascension happened when Austin, Shawn Michaels leaves. Austin leaves for a little bit. And so Triple H gets elevated. We could argue that had Brock Lesnar not left WWE, John Cena's ascension would have never happened.
Really?
To the status that, I mean...
Did John Cena, as the doctor of thugonomics...
Lesnar was the guy. Okay, listen. Of course...
Does Brock Lesnar have a platinum album? Does Brock Lesnar have 2 platinum albums?
Listen,
Can you see Brock Lesnar? Yes,
this is what I'm saying.
Can.
Okay, in the Attitude Era, yes, you have multiple guys. You had Austin, you had Rock, you had Triple H, you had Mick Foley, you had a lot of guys. But Austin was the guy that WWE hitched their wagon to. Then you had the Ruthless Aggression Era, right? Which is right after the Attitude Era. You got Cena, you got Brock, you got Batista, you got
Batista was also in that class, yes.
Who was that?
Batista was also in that.
Right. But WWE was hitching that wagon to Brock Lesnar. And then Brock left, and then they elevated Cena and Batista.
Okay, let's not act like, while Brock was like the main guy, Cena was over in the cut doing nothing. Cena was the United States champion before Brock ever held a championship. You know what I'm saying? So they were already pushing Cena, So you can't say like, oh man, if it wasn't for Brock Lesnar leaving, Cena would have never been nothing. No, they already saw something in Cena. That's why.
No, but Cena was struggling when he was in blue pants, green pants, red pants, all that at the beginning. He was struggling. They were about to boot him out.
Yeah,
because he was still his prototype robot.
Yeah, but then he started rapping. He had that match with the Undertaker. After that, and then and the Undertaker co-signed John Cena. So then they changed his character up.
Okay.
He started rapping.
When did
he
all
won
of
the
that
United
happen?
States Championship? It happened before Brock Lesnar won the championship.
What? Cena was the United States champion before Brock beat Rock at SummerSlam?
Yes.
We gotta go back to the.
We'll use our Google.
Somebody's talking in the chat room saying how Cena based his FU off of Brock Lesnar, so that's giving Brock Lesnar.
Robert says Cena's FU was based off of Lesnar's F5.
Yes,
that's
true.
Facts.
Is true.
So
facts.
So, like the walls of Jericho wasn't just a Boston crab.
Okay.
But we talking about in response.
Some people say cucumbers taste better pickled.
Oh my God.
What are you talking about? Your argument is
what are y'all
field.
talking about?
Tyler says that John Cena would have played second fiddle to Lesnar if Lesnar hadn't left after Mania 20. And that's right. When did Cena... Okay, so here's where you're wrong about Cena winning the United States title before Brock won a world title, because Cena won the U.S. title at WrestleMania 20. Brock had already been WWE champion, right? Cena beat Big Show
Cena
at WrestleMania 20.
Cena won the U.S. title in wait.
Yeah, he won at
Big Show. Yeah,
he beat Big Show at WrestleMania 20.
2004.
Cena had already been a world. I mean, I'm sorry,
Lesnar won in 202.
202. Right.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, so I was wrong. He's still better than Brock Lesnar. So what? I don't care. Does Brock Lesnar have 16 title reigns? No.
Brock Lesnar wasn't in WWE long enough to have 16 title reigns. What happened when Brock Lesnar came back?
He was
immediately.
Who was the first person that he wrecked? The first person he destroyed was John Cena. Beat him to a pulp. F5'd him in the middle of the ring.
Did he ever get that win back?
16 suplexes. Yeah. Okay.
Now you're stating your case against your own case.
I'm not. I'm still saying that John Cena, because you know what? Brock Lesnar took his ball and went home.
Okay.
John Cena stayed. John Cena got championships. He got more championships than Brock Lesnar. You know what I'm saying?
He does.
You know what I'm saying? He's still an icon in the sport. More people know who John Cena is than Brock Lesnar is.
Oh, that's debatable. That's debatable.
If you saw them hardcore wrestling fans, they would probably be like, "Oh yeah, that's Brock Lesnar." But the average 40-year-old soccer mom on the street, she gonna be like, "Oh, that's John Cena. I don't know who that big dude is."
Oh, I'm sorry. There was this little thing Brock Lesnar did called win the UFC heavyweight championship that probably got him some mainstream recognition.
Man, whatever. John Cena is still number 3 on my Mount Rushmore, and he's better than Brock Lesnar.
How did you mess this up? Like, everybody was on board for Cena, and then all of a sudden, we're like, what the frick are you talking about?
What's so funny is Cena was on my list, and I didn't get as much hate as this.
It's just something about Courtney's face that just makes you want to lash out at him.
Whatever.
But no, Cena is great. He took advantage of an opportunity. You know, he grabbed the brass ring, as Vince McMahon likes to say.
Because you could actually say that nobody really knew who Brock Lesnar was until he joined the UFC.
Stop.
Oh.
That's why it was so big that he joined the UFC, was because he was so popular because of his WWE run.
No, because for fight fans, yes. For fans of mixed martial arts and wrestling fans, yes. But for average mainstream people, Brock Lesnar didn't get on until he joined the UFC.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine. That's probably fair. All right. So John Cena.
But everybody knew that theme song, Word Life, the spinning belt.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because my daughters don't watch wrestling at all, but my 7-year-old knows that prank call involving John Cena, where they just play that theme music over and over again. So
there you go. All right. So John Cena is your number 3. Yeah. Fair enough. Listen.
We got a soccer mom in the chat room, by the way.
Yeah. And I threw Grant's comment. She says soccer moms would know John Cena before Brock. Okay. Yep. All right. A soccer mom has spoken. All right. Number 2 on your list, Courtney. So John Cena was number 3. I am really interested to see who number 2 is.
All right. So number 2 on my list was number 3 on Shane's list, and that would be Stone Cold, the hell-raising Stone Cold Steve Austin, man. You got to think, man. Stone Cold Steve Austin led an era. Like, simple and plain. He was the face. Him and 2 other guys were the face of an entire era. And that era was the era that put WWE back on top. You know, everybody wanted to, like Shane said, everybody wanted to give their friends a stunner. Everybody was trying to catch beer, wanted somebody to throw beers to them. People still want people to throw, Bud Lights to them and catch them like Austin. And, you know what I'm saying? Everybody wanted to give a middle finger to their boss. Everybody wanted to stomp out their boss because of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stop using my arguments.
So, I mean, it's an excellent argument.
Is there an echo in here?
Shane. So why? I mean, I don't have nothing more to add to your argument because it was excellent. So,
all right.
You want to know why? Here's the argument you should have used, Black Max. The reason why he is one of the greatest of all time is because when I was an 11-year-old or 12-year-old, I called into my local news station and I asked him, why is he going to be the next greatest U.S. champion like he was a great television champion? And he answered me. He says, you know what? You are one of the smartest person I have ever encountered. He said this on my local ABC News, guys. And from that point on, Stunning Steve Austin automatically became one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time.
Hey, just remember how his character developed. King of the Ring, and he told Jake the Snake Roberts, you want to talk about, you want to thump your Bibles, you want to talk about your John 3:16s. Well, Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. And that was it. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't got nothing else to add. Stone Cold Steve Austin, number 2 on my Mount Rushmore.
Classic line.
Classic.
That's a classic line right there.
It might be one that's top 5 promos in wrestling history.
That is one of the most memorable promos. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not gonna lie. That saved you because you were looking really like a Melania Trump stealing my arguments. But that was a really good save. That promo by him was top notch.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, he acknowledged the young kid in young Charleston, South Carolina. Let's not forget about that either.
Right.
Let's not forget about that.
Terrence Brown is forever endeared to Steve Austin. So you made his day. All right, Shane, number 2 on your list.
All right.
Where are we going?
Number 2.
This is gonna be good.
Which to many might be number 1.
Okay.
I gotta and it number 2 for me is none other than Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Okay.
That is my number 2. I think we should now know where I'm leading to number 1, but my number 2.
I have no clue. I
know who's number 1, and I cannot wait because if it's who I think it is, we're gonna have a nice little discussion.
Wait.
Listen, do not try to spoil it, Darius.
Okay.
Did you grow up in Jersey or did you grow up in Miami? Where'd you spend most of your youth?
All right. I spent my middle school and high school years in Jersey.
Okay. Yep. So we know who number 1 is.
All right, continue. Go to number 2.
All right. So The Rock. The Rock is number 2 on your list.
All right. So didn't debut the best. Rocky Maivia stunk. You know, that smiley, happy-go-lucky, all these tassels. Yeah, leave the tassels and all that flair stuff to Ultimate Warrior. That didn't work. But when Dwayne Johnson left Rocky Maivia and became The Rock, that man was must-see TV. He was the king of quotables. Everybody, if you smell la 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 la, people were doing the eyebrows. Who couldn't do the eyebrows? You had to do this. You're laying the smackest down. He had one of the most pointless, weakest moves as one of the most iconic moves ever with that people's elbow. It doesn't hurt whatsoever. You
almost
lay there
as bad as the 5 knuckle shuffle. Go ahead.
So but
not even close, by the way.
When I mentioned Stone Cold and there was The Rock, it was The Rock and Stone Cold, and The Rock was just an icon. And I wasn't the biggest Rock fan, but I couldn't hate on the character. I was a big DX fan, and that was me. DX, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. Those are 1 and 2 in my all-time, forever. But you cannot deny The Rock's marketability. You cannot deny The Rock's persona, his charisma. In the ring, he gets it done. Remember when he used to do that fancy ass DDT where he would go all over your body and then come around
float over.
Yeah, the float over DDT.
Over DDT. Yep.
Yeah, everybody is hitting everybody with the rock bottom. Like The Rock was that dude.
Yeah.
Him and Jonathan Coachman, him clowning people every Monday night, and then he goes on to doing movies, and he's the biggest box office attraction.
Yeah, dude is out of here. He's definitely, for my money, the biggest crossover star in the history of professional wrestling. Our homeboy JLB had commented on social media that he doesn't think another wrestler will ever reach that status. And he may be right, man. That guy, like you said, Shane, when he went from Rocky Maivia to The Rock, that transition during the Nation of Domination, he was out of here, man. He was out of here. Great promos, maybe the best on the mic ever. Definitely in the top 5 there. That could be another show, top 5 wrestling promos. We could probably do a show on that topic. And he's probably in the top 5 there. Anybody else got any thoughts on The Rock at number 2? I mean, I'm pretty sure there probably aren't many objections.
Nope.
No? All right. Okay. All right, Courtney. Who is did you give it your number 2, right? It was
Yeah.
Okay.
So Shane gives his number 1.
All right. Shane.
I have to hear this.
Oh, I
this.
think I know who it is. I think I know who it is.
Listen, again, I was looking at cachet.
Hold on, Shane. You know when he got to explain it real quick, we about to hear some stuff.
We're about to hear some malarkey.
I've been saying it all night. My name, cachet, recognition, and also ring stuff. So with that being said, my number 1.
Say it.
Don't you say it.
I knew it.
It's gotta be Hulk Hogan, man. It's gotta listen. You guys mentioned in the 80s.
He better have said Tony Atlas. I threw my headset down. He better have said Tony Atlas.
He did not say Tony Atlas. Tony Atlas was his second his honorable mention.
That was my 1B.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Listen. We said you guys said in the 80s it was Austin. It was Hogan and Andre. Wrestling would not WWF. The WWF. This is before the Panda people said the WWF would not have survived to become the WWE without Hulk Hogan.
Preach.
Not listen. Take your personal feelings out of it, because when I just mentioned Hogan, my wife turned around and she said, "Isn't he racist?" Listen,
didn't he use the N-word? Yes, he did.
Times Hogan does not know best, but when you look at the actual Mount Rushmore, which is behind me,
yep,
those guys were racist too.
That might be the best point you've made all night.
And that's
why they need to be torn down.
Listen, we would not be where we are as wrestling fans without Hulk. And I was not a Hulk Hogan fan. I liked him more than Ric Flair, who didn't make my list. Liked him more. No, listen. It's not because of the wrestling. It's more because of the whole persona and everything.
The character,
right. But you had Hogan telling the kids to eat their vitamins. You had Hogan who's having cartoons. You had the rock and roll wrestling, which is including in Hogan. You had Hogan who brought in the whole WrestleMania movement with the pay-per-views. It's Hogan. They know Hogan. They know Hogan in America. They know Hogan in Japan. They know Hogan in Mexico. They know Hogan in Europe. Everybody
Guess
knows.
What? He's a racist in all those places too.
Listen.
I listen. You can cancel culture all you want, but when we're talking about the biggest names ever when it comes to wrestling and who transformed the landscape, I can't leave him out. And I knew we were talking about this leading up to tonight, and I'm like, well, he's still on my dang list. I know Darius was not planning on putting him on his list, but I can't put the personal in there. That's just not me. I have to take the personal out. I'm looking at what he did, who he is, and if you leave all of that aside, when it comes to this, Hogan's there. Because if you're anti-domestic violence, if you're anti-beating on women, well, Stone Cold shouldn't be on the list.
Good point. You know what I equate it to? I think about baseball, right? And I think about guys like Barry Bonds and not Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire not being in the Hall of Fame because they juiced, right?
Barry Bonds never failed a drug test, by the way.
Thank you.
We got Hogan on tape.
Exactly.
We don't have anybody on tape sticking a needle in their butt.
Maybe A-Rod.
Prior to them juicing, they were incredible baseball players. They probably had Hall of Fame resumes before the illegal act happened. Hulk Hogan is a racist. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? But before we discovered he was a racist, he put professional wrestling on the map. And for that reason alone, he has to be on wrestling's Mount Rushmore. Wrestling would not be mainstream without Hulk Hogan. He was Thunder Lips, for God's sakes, in Rocky 3. Come on, man. He was Thunder Lips. And I know Darius hates it because
he's a racist.
He's a racist.
Not Darius. Hogan. Not Darius.
Not Darius. Darius is not a racist. but Hulk Hogan is. And I get it, but I agree 100% with Shane. He made my list. I didn't put him at my personal list. I didn't put him at number one because of the racism, but I could not have him in my top five. There's no way.
Listen, you talk about, keeping your emotions out of it, but this is wrestling. They didn't actually go out there and get the wins and losses without having some emotion put behind it. That's the reason why these guys get their wins and losses. So to take that out is crazy. And I mean, let's not pretend that his beliefs didn't affect how other people in the ring. I was telling Stokes, look at his run in WCW. He was on top. Guess what happened? As soon as they kicked him to the curb, they put a black man, Booker T, who's been waiting in the wings, held down by Hulk Hogan all these years as champion.
Whoa. Listen, be that as it may, you really went to WCW because the NWO was the hottest damn ticket in town.
Whoa, buddy, they were.
Also ran NWO into the ground.
It does not matter.
You could argue that was Kevin Nash.
No, that's because Ted Turner and those people who were supposed to be running it just gave all those guys free reign. Yeah. They had creative control. They were throwing money at everybody. So if I'm just getting money thrown at me where I could do whatever the heck I want, I could finger poke a doom and all that stuff, that I'm gonna do whatever I need to do and get that bag. But NWO almost bankrupt WWE.
They did.
That's true. They did.
Hulk Hogan turning heel. First of all,
the best moment in wrestling history.
Maybe the best
because he's a real heel.
That's wrestling. You turn your.
Oh boy.
Definitely the most shocking heel turn in the history of wrestling. Maybe even, like Courtney said, the most shocking moment in the history of wrestling. Nobody expected Mr. Say Your Prayers, Eat Your Vitamins, Say the N-word to turn heel. To turn heel.
The only person that knew was Bobby Heenan, because remember, he told us all along.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, very controversial, but deservedly so. I'm going to have to agree with the Caribbean Playboy here. Hulk Hogan should be on the list. Whether he's number 1, whether he's number 3, whether he's number 2 or 5, whatever. If there's a Mount Rushmore in professional wrestling, racism aside, it has to include Hulk Hogan, in my opinion.
Thank you. Somebody sane is here.
But go ahead. Who's your number 1, Courtney?
So before I get to my number 1, I must say that even though he wasn't on my personal list, I got to agree with everything that Shane said about Hogan. If it wasn't for Hogan, then people like Austin and The Rock and John Cena wouldn't have been able to get in movies and stuff like that. They wouldn't have been able to. They wouldn't have been as marketable. They wouldn't have been seen as marketable enough to make money outside of wrestling. Hulk Hogan is a worldwide name. Hulk Hogan, you said it, Meech. Hogan put wrestling on the map. But for my number 1, if you just shut your mouths and listen, you can hear the crowd chanting my number 1 name. Rocky, 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 Rocky. The most electrifying man in sports entertainment. The highest grossing actor in movie history. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
History? Is that accurate?
Yes, that is.
No, that's Samuel L. Jackson.
Thank you, because Samuel's been in like 500 movies. You add
Yeah.
all that.
It's
up.
it's
Samuel
100%
Jackson has
Sam
been in
Jackson.
billion- Okay, whatever.
Okay.
The Avengers.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now we talked about being the carrying an era. It was Hogan. Like in the 80s, it was Hogan, Andre. In the late 90s, early 2000s, it was Austin, Rock, and that was it. Yeah, they had to sprinkle Triple H in because he was Vince's son-in-law.
There was more than that, but
no, but do they count, Demetrius? No,
yeah.
they don't. So
I mean, okay, say Austin and Rock were 1A and 1B. There are other great people in the Attitude Era.
Yeah, like Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, Triple H. Yes, those guys. Foley, Undertaker.
Okay, well, it just wasn't them then.
But none of them was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So The Rock, die, Rocky, die. Rocky sucks. He heard those chants. And when he heard those chants, he looked deep down inside of himself. And he said, you know what, Rock, you've got to make a change. So what did he do? He sought out a mentor, a leader, Farouk Assad of the Nation of Domination. And then when Farouk was not getting the job done, like the true leader The Rock is, what did he do? He said, Farouk, you're old. I'm going to put you out the pasture. This is mine now. This is my group now. And what did he do? He took the Nation of Domination to soaring heights, including opening up their borders and allowing a Canadian to come in, Owen Hart. You know what I'm saying? The Black Heart. Rest in peace, Owen Hart. The Rock is the most quotable, had the best promos, has an entire show named after him. You know what I'm saying? He layeth, I mean, Rudy Poo candy ass, take you to the SmackDown hotel. Do you like pie, Lillian Garcia? I mean, people's strudel, the people. I mean, hey, listen. First of all,
are you making a point? Am I listening to a TED talk or am I listening to? What the heck? Is he running for office or something? You're like, he looked deep down in his heart. He opened up the borders to a Canadian. Is The Rock running for president right now? Is it Rock 2020?
Hold on, Meech. Are you giving your number 1 right now?
I am not.
It doesn't matter if you're giving your number 1 right now, because I am. So, The Rock and Austin had classic battles, but The Rock also had classic battles with Triple H. He had classic battles with Kurt Angle. He had the most hyped up WrestleMania event of all time, Rock Hogan. You know what I'm saying? Dwayne Johnson.
You mean Hulk Hogan that shouldn't be on the Mount Rushmore wrestling? That Hulk Hogan?
Yes, that Hulk Hogan.
Oh.
So ain't nothing else I can say, man. Dwayne, and then he left. He left. Was like, yo, I'm gonna make movies. I'm gonna make movies to put more eyes on the WWE product when I come back. And then guess what?
More eyes on him and put more.
That's not why I did it.
Nothing to do with the WWE.
But those eyes followed him back to WWE. So he was a champion in not one era, not two eras, but three eras. All right.
Okay. No, I mean, the greatness of the Rock.
And like I said, like I'm the Michigan president. I'm the president of the Michigan chapter of the C Nation. And The Rock,
really?
what did he do?
Really?
He put Cena down. Yes, officially, I am.
He's the only one in it, so sure.
So I mean, probably. My kids.
Him and a gang of like 8 to 12-year-olds.
Right. Those kids are old now. They're like 18. They've moved on.
But
they're like Roman Reigns now.
People stopped following wrestling in the 80s. And once Hulk Hogan went to WCW, and it's crazy because I actually had a Mount Rushmore for both WCW and WWE, but The Rock has soared to heights that nobody ever thought he would, based off of wrestling, with his wrestling and his acting ability, and he carried an era with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the only reason why I picked him ahead of Stone Cold Steve Austin is unfortunately the injuries, cut Austin's career short. Because if the injuries hadn't cut Austin's career short, who knows, what further heights Stone Cold could have reached. But you know what, Shane? I don't need you putting factual information into this, okay? Whatever. Who is Yahoo Finance anyway? Okay. Do they know movies? Okay. But anyway.
They know numbers, they know money. All right. So The Rock's number one.
Yes. The way I say all that to say this.
Oh, come on. Didn't you say enough? We gotta wrap this show up.
The Rock is number one on my Mount Rushmore.
All right. And we were
another thing.
Right. and another thing. I'm surprised you didn't say if you smell, but anyway. Okay, all right. I gave the idea. All right. So we're gonna breeze through this really quick because we don't want to we don't want to go to some repeats because obviously some guys that made your top five personal top fives made the composite list. And so real quick, we're going to talk about some honorable mentions. One honorable mention. Here's the top five based on the composite ranking. This is my ranking, Darius's ranking, and the ranking of the tribe. Starting with honorable mentions, I'll just put this one out first because we've talked about him already. He did not make the top five. He was an honorable mention, and that's John Cena. John Cena was one of the honorable mentions, which means he was top 7 in voting, but he did not make the illustrious GOAT debate top 5. The second honorable mention is somebody we have not talked about tonight. Darius Brown he's ready. You see, he grabbed his earphone, he wiggled them to make sure that the speakers are working. He's ready. I'm going to give him the floor on this one because this guy was number 1 on Darius's list, and he didn't even make the top 5 on the composite. He was number 1.
Is it like Kushida?
Is it Kushida? No, it's not Kushida. You probably can guess who it is based on the region of the country where Darius Brown was raised. Being a South Carolina guy, the second honorable mention, number 1 on his personal list, but not in the GOAT Debate top 5, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Darius, the floor is yours, sir.
If I had time, I'd go upstairs. I'd get that signed Ric Flair singlet that I have.
You got Ric Flair's drawers?
Singlet? He wore singlets?
It's a signed Ric Flair singlet.
Wow.
Not that he wore it though.
He never wore it.
So you just got some random dude singlet that Ric Flair signed.
I wrestled 1 year in high school, and I took my singlet and I got it signed by Ric Flair. It is my only wrestling autograph that I still have.
Yours. So it's
Yes.
yours. Okay.
Yes.
What was your
Like
record?
you have.
My record? That might be for a different podcast. Let's just say I never made weight. So we'll leave it at that.
Oh boy, we definitely got to talk about that one on an episode.
Yep.
Yes. But so being that it's the only prize wrestling possession that I actually have, he definitely makes my list, but he makes the list at number 1 in my Mount Rushmore because let's talk about it. Name recognition. I mean, Snoop called him an inspiration. Come on. He ran for president with Waka Flocka. We know all about the Ric Flair drip.
Did that really happen?
Well, they were thinking about it. They have promos. You can find it on the internet. All these things have. Oh, my sister.
Oh my gosh.
My
Here's the
sister brought
secret.
it.
Where's the autograph? We can't see it.
Yeah, we can't see the autograph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That looks like a singlet for a 10-year-old.
There it is. You can see Nature Boy, Ric
Okay,
Flair.
all right. Got some Ric Flair
look at
drip
that.
right there.
I was wrestling in the 135-pound division, but I couldn't make weight most times
That's South Carolina cooking.
because I refused to cut weight. And so most of my wins came by, well, we won't go there. We won't talk about that. We'll go back to Ric Flair. We talk about his drip. We talk about his promos. Name someone who can cut a better promo. The list is very, very small.
The
It's
Rock.
very small. Rock, Stone Cold, throw him up in there. That's
Cena.
about it. It ain't Hogan. It ain't
CM
that
Punk.
bum Hogan.
CM Punk.
Paul Heyman.
The Miz,
The Miz.
He could.
Jericho.
Yeah, Jericho also.
Y'all
No.
naming a bunch of bums. Get these
Y'all
bums off
y'all
of our-
disrespecting Nate right now. Y'all
Taker.
disrespecting the Nate.
Go ahead.
great matches. Some of the greatest matches in history. His Flair Steamboat. His battles with Dusty Rhodes. His battles with Harley Race. I mean, you could go on and on. This guy has greatness in every aspect of professional wrestling. He's known outside the ring. Everybody know. You talk about household names. We all know who Ric Flair is. So the fact that he is not in our top 5 and that bum Hulk Hogan is and that goofy Chris Jericho is.
No, wait, Chris Jericho's not in our top 5.
He was mentioned on this program and I don't appreciate it.
He's in my top 5.
Hulk Hogan's not in our top 5 either.
Shane keeps repeating it over and over again. That's all I
He's
can hear.
in Shane's top 5. So he's not on the composite top 5.
You
He
better
should
believe
be,
he's
but
not.
he's not.
He should not be. He's a bum.
So
Listen,
hold on, Darius. So I agree with you talking about Flair, but I didn't like Flair because I thought Flair's matches were boring, and they repeated the same formula over and over again.
Name me someone who doesn't. Everybody got the same 5 moves in their arsenal.
but you put John Cena on your list? Wait a minute. Come on. That dude has
Name me that great John Cena match. He had one match with
the
Edge.
5 moves of doom. If anybody is the poster child for that, it is Jonathan Cena. He
Okay,
is absolutely.
so you know what I do when I have insomnia? I put on a Ric Flair match. That's my thing.
Get the frick out
Yep.
of here. Get the frick out of here.
I personally put on a Randy Orton match, but that's just me.
That's true.
But
I mean, look,
Hey,
y'all talk about
hey. Randy Orton was influenced by Ric Flair.
That's true.
there you go.
That's true.
and he couldn't live up to the hype. So get that bum out of here too.
Wait, RKO is not bad, man, but okay. So Ric Flair.
Randy Orton's better than Ric Flair.
Get the frick out of here. Get out of here.
Now listen.
No, I'm not tapping, bro.
Hang up on you right now.
Tell me his top 5 matches. Go.
Who? Orton?
Yeah.
Who cares?
All right, then.
You can't name one. You cannot name a memorable Randy Orton match. Are you going to say the greatest wrestling match ever versus Edge?
Yeah, him and Edge just had the greatest wrestling match of all time.
Man, you bad if you don't. Man, oh my God.
First of all, I'm being facetious. Okay, I'm being facetious.
Yeah, I think we know.
I don't think Orton's better than Ric Flair. Technical ability, maybe, yes. But as far as match,
come on, man. The Migos made a song about him, man. So I mean, he made it right there. So Ric Flair, and then you got that. He has a daughter who is a living legend on her way to being one.
Y'all know how I feel about Charlotte.
So so there you go. So Ric Flair's honorable mention. Now getting into the top 5 again. Some of these we're repeating. And then we'll touch on the ones that, because we actually have 2 wrestlers that did not make either one of you's top 5 that are actually in our top 5 or the composite top 5. So at number 5, we talked about him earlier, 5 decades of destruction. The Dead Man, The Undertaker, comes in at number 5, 7-time world champion. Listen. The Tribe voted him.
Teddy Long's favorite. Don't forget about that. Teddy Long's favorite.
He loved The Undertaker. Yeah. He came in at number 1 on the Tribe's list. He got the most votes.
That's recency bias.
Yeah, that's recency bias.
It's got to be.
That's because they must have all been watching his special.
The last ride, yeah. But it was good, man. The last ride, it was really good. It was good. It was definitely worth it.
Can I say I think the Undertaker's overrated? Can I say that? Come on, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
I'm with you.
His WrestleMania matches were not that great. Let's see the first 10. Are you talking about freaking King Kong Bundy?
Gonzalez?
They were Giant Gonzalez, King Kong,
Mark
Bundy,
Henry,
Snake Roberts,
Kane, all those stuff.
Jimmy Snuka. The Kane storyline made that match good. Like the story was good.
The story was great.
That was good.
A great story, but the matches.
But listen,
when we saw them in Atlanta,
involved was probably like the most iconic match of all time. That first Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels, and then the one with Foley.
And then the one with Foley. Come on, Undertaker has memorable matches, and if you look at he has some bad early WrestleMania matches. Yep. But when you look at his 2 matches at Mania with Shawn Michaels, the two with Triple H, his match with Punk that we all saw live, his Mania match with Ric Flair was decent.
His Mania match with His Mania match with Edge was decent.
He went on like an 8-year streak, which Tyler just alluded to. Thank you, Tyler. He said WrestleMania, Taker had good Mania matches from 21 to 29. Then he ended it with the Graveyard match with AJ Styles.
The Boneyard match, which is the greatest match in all of wrestling history.
No, I wouldn't go that far. But it's a great match. It was different. We didn't know what to expect, but it was good. And if that's the Undertaker's last match, that is a great way to go out. So Undertaker at number 5. Hold on. Coming in at number 4, guys. Coming in at number 4. I told you my daughter would make an appearance before this episode ended. Coming in at number 4. A multi-time world champion. Did it as a singles wrestler. Did it first as a tag team wrestler. He was kind of the bridge between Hogan and Austin. Coming in at number 4, Bret the Hitman Hart.
So Bret Hart was the guy who I had to split my time with my position with Taker. Bret Hart, when I was growing up, Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler, hands down.
Bret Hart for a long time was Bret
Yep.
Hart was personally in my top 5. He was number 3 on my list. There was a
Best there
time
is, the best there was, the best there ever
before
will.
Rock and
Mhm.
another guy who we're going to talk about here shortly. Well, this guy and Hart were kind of around at the same time, but Rock is my number 1 for wrestling, but Bret Hart was number 1 for a long time, and then your list changed over the years. But there's no denying that from a technical standpoint, Bret Hart is one of the greatest wrestlers that ever lived.
He didn't move the needle any though. Like his title reigns. Yeah, he had 9 title reigns. He was involved in 2 huge matches, but the person that he wrestled was the person that became the bigger star from those 2 matches. It was the one versus Austin,
WrestleMania 13. Yeah.
and then of course the Montreal screw job.
Right. So you think that Shawn Michaels? Well, never mind. I was gonna say you think Shawn Michaels is a bigger star than Bret Hart. I guess you probably.
I do.
You probably would say.
Yeah.
You probably would say yes. However, I think Bret Hart, for me personally, yes, Shawn Michaels doesn't have a bad match. I mean, he's kind of, you have a handful of guys, well, with the exception of the Saudi tag team match with Kane and Undertaker, but you got some wrestlers that just you see them wrestle, they don't have bad matches. Bret Hart was like that for me. Shawn Michaels is like that. I think today AJ Styles is like that. Daniel Bryan is pretty cool. Those guys usually don't have bad matches. And so Bret Hart, man, was just, again, I think he was one of those guys, along with The Undertaker, that kind of held WWE, although it was by a thread, he kind of held them together in that bridge, that time between Hogan's era ending and Austin's era beginning. It was Bret Hart, it was Shawn Michaels, it was Undertaker. They were kind of the guys, the glue that kind of, again, barely, but they kind of held it all together. When the Hart Foundation, the faction, that was some of the best Bret Hart we've ever seen. When he was a heel and he was anti-American, that was very good Bret Hart. Of course, he was in the Hart Foundation, the tag team, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. So Bret Hart gets love from me, man. I think he deserves to be on the list.
I agree.
Shane's rolling his eyes. He might not like number 3 either, Darius, but I like number 3 because this guy is one of the most charismatic. Not only is he charismatic, he has great technical ability in the ring. I'm really surprised none of you guys had him in your top 5. But coming in at number 3, give me the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Number 3 on our list of all-time great wrestlers, 6-time world champion. Listen. Who was the most?
Stokes has a love affair with Randy Savage.
Who does?
You do.
Okay. He made the list not just because of me. Macho Man Randy Savage was 3rd in voting amongst the tribe. He was tied for 3rd with Stone Cold Steve Austin, with Hulk Hogan, John Cena, and the Ultimate Warrior.
Listen, there's something wrong with these damn goats, but because the Ultimate Warrior's up there. I don't have a problem with Macho Man possibly, getting all this fan vote. I don't have a problem with it. It's like the NBA All-Star game when you have the fan votes. You're gonna see some names that you're like, really? But I can let Macho slide because if you talk about Hogan, which Darius doesn't want to, there's also Macho Man. It's like the power,
Yeah, there was always like there was always like a guy, and then there was like the guy trying to catch the guy. So you had like Austin Rock, and then you're right for Hulk Hogan. Andre kind of, after Hogan beat Andre, it was Macho Man. It was Macho Man as like that number 2 guy, and until the Ultimate Warrior came along during that era, you could argue Macho Man along with Hogan were the 2 most charismatic guys. I mean, Macho Man was
more charismatic than Hogan.
His promos were on steroids. Then the Ultimate Warrior came along, and those promos were like legitimately, like really on steroids. And then they did a promo together, and if you've ever seen that, your head might explode. That was wild. But Macho Man, aside from the promos and the charisma, he had great matches. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, regarded by many as one of, if not the greatest wrestling match of all time. Speaking of the Ultimate Warrior, my all-time favorite match ever in wrestling is Macho Man versus Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man's retirement match. That match is one of the best matches. I know it's Ultimate Warrior, and he has the same complex that your John Cena has, where he didn't have a whole lot of moves, but the story,
Cena had more moves than Warrior, bro.
That match was one of the best. It's my all-time favorite match. Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior. I think that was WrestleMania. It was 7 or 8. It might have been 7. But it was a great match. But Macho Man comes in at number 3. Anybody have anything to add to that? Agree? Disagree? What are your thoughts, Dears?
Yeah, so speak to Macho Man's greatness, right? Because Hogan, that bum shocked the world when he turned heel, but he was already fading. There's a reason why he went heel, because people were bored of him.
Mm-hmm.
Think back to Macho Man. Macho Man was most popular wrestler of the year in 1988 for, I think, PWI. Then turned heel and was most hated wrestler of the year in 89. The peaks, he was at the top here, and then turned around and went to the top here. And then you mentioned the retirement match. WWE thought he was done, and they put him to the announce booth. And what did he do? 1995, he became the comeback wrestler of the year, and he went on to win like six more world titles after that. So
and he was great on commentary too.
He was good on commentary. He had a nice run as Macho King. If you guys remember that, he was Macho King. So he had a good run, and with Sherry as his manager, and so and Macho Man, look, he had 2 of the best valets of all time. He had Miss Elizabeth, he had Sensational Sherry. So Macho Man was that guy, man.
I thought you were going to say Gorgeous George. Sorry.
Oh, I forgot about that. But no.
Hey, if we keep it at 100, the Hogan Macho Man slow burn breakup might be one of the best storylines in wrestling history.
Very good. It was, and then you had Elizabeth there in the middle, and the whole. Yeah, I remember that Saturday night's main event like it was yesterday when he turned heel. I remember barely being able to stay up as a kid to watch Saturday night's main event because it came on at like 11:30 at night. But I remember that one.
Stay up now.
Yeah, you're right. As soon as we go off air this podcast, I'm going to sleep. So we already know how that goes. But yeah, Macho Man, you're right. That slow burn with Hogan was great. And then he just went on, he went on to have great matches. Even his run in WCW, it wasn't, as memorable as WWE, but he even did some great things, there as well. So Macho Man comes in at number 3. And then the top 2 we've already talked about, so we'll just breeze through it really quick. Number 2 is Stone Cold Steve Austin, and number 1 is the People's Champ, The Rock. So there you
So
have it.
wait a minute. So HBK ain't on the list?
HBK did not.
That's
HBK
a
did not
surprise.
make the top 5. He did come fourth in poll voting, in the tribes voting. He was tied with Chris Jericho, of all people, for fourth. So there was a log jam. So the tribe voted Undertaker 1, Rock number 2, and then there was a log jam at 3. There were like 5 guys at 3 tied for third, and then you had Jericho and Shawn Michaels tied for fourth. But you brought up HBK. I guess we do a snub segment, and I guess he's probably at the top of the list when you talk about guys that probably should have made this list that didn't.
He was my number 5.
Over Bret Hart? Yeah.
Hey, man, HBK has, like, my favorite match of all time, and I know y'all might poo-poo this, but my favorite match of all time is a Monday Night Raw, Shawn Michaels versus Shelton Benjamin. To me, that is hands down the greatest wrestling match that I've ever seen, and my favorite wrestling match. Hands down, bro.
Hands down. Now, when he does the springboard and then Shawn Michaels super kicks him off the springboard, that's great.
When you saw that for the first time, when you saw that live, that was crazy. When you go back and see it like years later, you're like, But that initial shock, that was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you, I like Shawn Michaels now. I didn't put Shawn Michaels on my list because most of his career he was an a-hole. That's why he personally didn't.
Wait. I thought when we talk about that,
okay, here we go.
Hogan, about who they are. Now all of a sudden, with one of the greatest performers of all time, it matters.
Yeah, I keep putting personals in this. It's like a rap battle.
Yeah, for me, like I said, my personal top 5 was was Rock, Savage, Hart, Stone Cold, Hogan. So those guys for me just they did more for me than HBK did. HBK is definitely, if we were doing the top 10 on my personal list, he would be in my top 10 for sure. I just liked Bret Hart better than Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, I like Bret Hart better than Shawn Michaels, especially back in that time. And I'll admit that HBK, as time has gone on, I've liked him better. Right. But he's like probably the one guy. Well, not the one guy. You can count on your fingers, and I'm talking probably 3 fingers of guys I have never seen have a bad match ever. I don't think I've ever seen Shawn Michaels have a bad match. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you missed that one in Dubai or wherever the frick it was.
Oh, okay. First of all, we know the Saudi shows don't count.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The Saudi shows don't count.
All right. Well, I do want to note that we did have a discussion about whether any ladies would make the top 5, and that's probably going to be another podcast episode. We might do a Rushmore for the ladies, but a lady did get a vote from the tribe.
Jacqueline.
And I want you guys, any guesses as to who it was?
Trish
Stratus.
Shane said Trish Stratus. Courtney said Trish Stratus. Who do you say, Darius?
Jacqueline.
Darius is hoping.
Jacqueline. No. It is the current Raw Women's Champion, Asuka.
Really?
What?
Yes.
Asuka. 12-year-old. What? Find out on Facebook.
Asuka got a vote.
I love Asuka, but no.
Yeah, Asuka's a great wrestler, man. Somebody talked about her wrestling in Japan and then her current run in WWE. The most shocking wrestler to get a vote from the tribe. Everybody's sitting down, right?
Yes.
Sin Cara got a vote.
What?
I had to make sure I
Somebody's
heard
messing
that
with the
right.
rankings.
I had to make sure I
Somebody's
heard
trying
that
to mess
right,
with the
bro.
rankings.
All right. So who's friends with Sin Cara here on Facebook?
Was
But
that James? Was that
Shane.
James?
No, it was I think, Shane, it was somebody who commented on your you reposted the poll, and I think
It's your
somebody
friend Shane.
in your group commented, because I took anybody some people listed multiple wrestlers. So if they listed multiples, I gave them a vote. And this person said Sin Cara.
Hey, you need to unfriend that person.
Are you
Would
sure?
this person
I gotta go look. Maybe it was like Joe Burgett or something.
Wait, Ashley in the chat room says, not that it matters, but which Sin Cara? Oh boy.
Was there a good Sin Cara? Please let me know.
Yeah. I thought Sin Cara was kind of fresh when he first debut. Now I ain't talking Mount Rushmore wrestling fresh, but I thought he was cool. I thought he was all right.
Listen,
He ain't even
He
Mount
may
St.
be-
Helen fresh.
I don't know, guys. He may be the best wrestler to ever jump off a trampoline.
Maybe.
Well, there's the Hardy Boys, so never mind.
Miz got a vote. Miz got a vote.
I mean-
Kofi got a vote.
Okay, let me ask you this, Mitch. Did my mom vote for the Miz? Because I know she commented.
Your mother did vote
I
for the
knew it.
Miz.
Oh,
Miss Mac voted for the
I
Miz.
knew.
She was the one person that voted for the Miz. Yes.
ugh.
Yes.
She must not have went with us to WrestleMania.
Because maybe he was the one that voted for Sin Cara.
I don't see anybody on my thing saying Sin Cara.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look then. We'll find
It
out.
was Stokes.
And it was not me. We'll find out who the culprit was. But it was a lot of votes. We had at least 35 wrestlers get at least one vote.
Dang.
35 different wrestlers.
Wow.
So that beat Denzel movies last week. Denzel had like 22 movies get at least one vote for best movie, which just speaks to his greatness. But yeah, 35 different wrestlers got votes. So, and most of them you could justify. Okay, I can see why somebody thinks this guy's great. It was a couple of them, a la Sin Cara, that you may scratch your head. But yeah, so yeah, even Goldberg got a vote.
Listen, people need when you're thinking about greatest of all time, we have to take personal feelings out of it.
Yeah.
These things are saying greatest of all time, not your favorite wrestler,
Right.
or the person who had the greatest entrance to you, unless we're talking about greatest entrance. But voting, like some of these names and stuff, is like when you're thinking about greatest of all time, like some of these names shouldn't have been up there.
Okay.
You shouldn't have 22 Denzel movies as greatest of all time. He's made some great movies, but when you're talking about greatest of all time, I don't think your list should be 22 movies deep.
Well, no, I mean, and we got it right. If you listen, you guys can go back and listen to last week's episode. We got it right. The best Denzel movie of all time was it? Remember the Titans?
Ugh.
Yep.
It
That's not better than John
How
Q.
strong?
It was either that or Training Day. I think it was Remember the Titans, though. But I digress. But I think our top 5, the composite one, is decent. Rock, Stone Cold. I don't mind Savage being on there. I really think where the list falters is not having Hulk Hogan on the list.
God dang.
I do. I think that's where the list falters. We have Rock, Austin, Savage, Bret Hart, Undertaker. You can make a case for all 5 of those guys being on Mount Rushmore for various reasons. And then you got Cena and Ric Flair as the honorable mentions. You can make a case why they all should be on the Mount Rushmore. But not having Hulk Hogan on the list, racism aside, is a travesty.
That's like having the Mount Rushmore and not having Washington, who was the first president.
I mean,
Get them off.
that's like having a round.
Get them off.
Greatest NBA players and not having like Jordan on the list.
Was Jordan a racist?
Jordan ain't
Oh
step off for black people until this year.
Oh
Listen,
gosh,
he did though. Hulk Hogan still has it.
right. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Go Debate podcast. This was a fun one, man. It was great having the guys on the old HTR crew together. Be sure that you guys check out any of our previous episodes wherever you find podcasts. You can find the Go Debate podcast. We're everywhere: Spotify, our iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google. We're all over the place. Be sure to follow us on social media. It's right there on Darius's screen, GOAT_debate on Instagram and Twitter. Search the GOAT Debate Podcast on Facebook. You'll find us there as well. Any parting words, gentlemen, before we sign off for this edition of the GOAT Debate?
Follow me on TikTok at DJ Pop Tart, all one word, DJ Pop Tart. The number's 876. DJ Pop. I'm gonna change my name right now.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, so they can see it. But yeah, Shane he went from the Caribbean Playboy to the
I'm married now. I can't be the Caribbean.
Right. He's no longer the Caribbean Playboy. He did it for one night only. Now he's
the DJ Pop Tart.
Yeah, he's DJ Pop Tart, king of TikTok right now. Yeah, so make sure you check Shade out on TikTok. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. Mac, you got anything you want to say to the people?
Hey man, just follow TikTok's finest, DJ Pop Tart 876. Shane Howard.
All right, Darius, what about you, man?
In addition to following DJ Pop Tart 876 on TikTok, I want to remind you that we're trying to launch our own social media network where we're going to feature great podcasts and content creators. And we just asking for $1. Can we borrow $1? That's all we're asking. If you'll go to our Indiegogo, which you can get from the Hit the Ropes. Oh, man. I don't follow. You can find it there on Hit the Ropes too, but on the GOAT Debate on Facebook. I'm going to hit you up as we leave after Stokes give us our parting words. I've got another little quick video I want to give a world premiere to, and but just donate $1 to the cause. Social, you can find it Social N on social media, but the Social Network is a new platform we're trying to build. So we're just asking for $1. If we can get $1 from you, we're gonna create something really cool.
Follow the GOAT Debate podcast. This is better than all the debate shows on TV. It's better than First Take. It's better than First Things First. It's better than Skipping. Probably not as good as Skipping Shannon because Shannon Sharp. Hey man, it's 1B, right? It's
we got
1B.
something to strive towards. We're working towards
the GOAT Debate.
We're working towards it. And if it sounds like we were begging for $1, it's because we are. So please donate to the Indiegogo campaign. Like Darius said, Social Network is going to be popping if we can get this thing off the ground. It's going to be great. We're going to sign off for this episode of the GOAT Debate. Thanks to Shane. Thanks to Black Mex, Courtney for joining us. It was fun. We'll have them back on because I'm sure we'll do another wrestling topic at some point down the line. But until next time, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll check you out next time. Those watching live, get to see the world premiere of Darius's new video. Let's go. Oh, there it is. That was great. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Peace.